Joining us first on CNBC to react, the man in question, Bill Browder, Hermitage Capital Management. Bill, good to have you here. I bet you're not surprised to hear Vladimir Putin refer to you directly.
It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time. Vladimir Putin is very mad at me. He's mad at me because of the Magnitsky Act. The Magnitsky Act is a piece of legislation named after my murdered lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky. He was murdered after uncovering a $230 million Russian corruption scandal. Some of that $230 million went to Vladimir Putin himself. And so Putin feels personally exposed and potentially at risk of having his assets seized in the West. And so every chance he gets, he tries to get foreign countries to come after me. This is just one of many of his attempts.
He leveled an accusation at you that you funneled and helped funnel lots of money to Hillary Clinton, did you?
I did not. I did not. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I don't live in the United States. I've been living in Britain for 29 years. I make no campaign contributions, and so that's not true. I should also point out that Vladimir Putin and his regime have accused me of serial killing, of being a CIA, MI6 agent, and about 1,000 other things. And so they just he's kind of unhinged in these accusations.
You said before, Bill, that this is not the first time that President Putin has mentioned you, has called you out. What is your reaction in terms of your personal security after such a news conference? Do you increase it? Do you look behind you when you're walking down the street a little bit more often?
Well, my personal security has been at risk for a very long time. This is not, this struggle that I'm having with Putin has been going on for 10 years. I mean, just a month ago, on May 30th in Madrid, I was arrested on a Russian Interpol arrest warrant by the Spanish police. Thankfully, Interpol contacted them 2 hours after I was arrested and made sure I was released. But the Russians have been coming after me for a long time, and so I'm not surprised. It doesn't change anything. I'm always on high alert. And there's a lot of people around the world, governments, people, who are looking after me.
What do you think when you see an American president on foreign soil standing next to the president of the Russian Federation, basically embracing or at least not distancing himself from Mr. Putin's denials of involvement in an American election?
Well, the whole thing confuses me. I've been watching Trump and his public statements and this type of stuff, which I find awful and unpleasant. And at the same time, Trump completely surrounds himself with people like Pompeo, Jim Mattis, Nikki Haley, and others who are completely clear-eyed about what a criminal and monster Vladimir Putin is. And so it kind of doesn't make sense. I would almost describe it as schizophrenic because U.S. policy towards Russia is actually quite tough. The sanctions are tough. U.S. is supplying military equipment to Ukraine, which is tough, and various other things. And so it's all very confusing. It's not clear what Trump could actually do because the apparatus doesn't agree with him.
Yeah, the sanctions that have been put in place against 7 oligarchs, 12 companies, 17 government officials, they are the strongest thus far. A lot of people would argue it's because of Congress and not because of the president. But indeed, he's got foreign policy hawks all around him who are very, very tough on Russia. Back on Melissa's question about your safety, with the poisonings that we've seen now in London, which the UK blames also on the Russian government. Are you spending less time there?
I don't really sort of comment on where I spend my time or where I don't, but what I can say is that, if the Russians want to poison me using, military-grade chemical weapons, there's pretty much nothing I can do. And they could do it here, they could do it, they could do it there, they could do it anywhere. There's no clarity about how you prevent yourself, you protect yourself from a terrorist, a government-sponsored terrorist attack using chemical weapons. But I take lots of precautions, and so far I've survived. It's been 8.5 years since my lawyer Sergei Magnitsky was murdered, and I'm still here. And it's my hope that I'll still be here 8.5 years and 20 years from now.
What do you think of President Putin's offer, let me put it that way, to invite FBI people to come in and talk to the 12 individuals who were indicted on Friday with respect to election meddling in the United States, in return for the United States opening its law enforcement auspices into the investigation of you? What do you think of that?
Well, so these deals never sort of, when it actually gets pushed down to the level of people conducting investigations, it will never come to fruition. The Russians will never allow real investigators to come and speak to those people, and the U.S. authorities will never allow Russian investigators to come here. It's just not going to happen. It's like there was an agreement that Russia and America would join a cybersecurity task force to fight election meddling. That never came to fruition, and this one won't either.
When you heard Putin's response, didn't you think it was almost in jest that the whole thing was offered? When he says, sure, we'll have them, and then we'll start to do, oh, you want to do that? And then we'll do this, to make it clear that, of course, it's never going to happen.
And that's how Putin operates. He's a very clever man. He's been at this game for a long time. He was a KGB officer and the head of the KGB before that. You know, he's been thinking about this summit for months and months and months and looking at every different nuance and potential weakness of Trump. And he's playing Trump and the United States like a fiddle right now.
And yet our president called it Mr. Putin has a very interesting idea, I believe is what how he characterized that exchange.
And what will happen afterwards is he'll sit down with his administration, and they'll say, you know, that's not how things work, Mr. President.
I'm sure he's had that conversation plenty of times, Bill. I mean, I don't know if you saw the body language between the two when President Putin made that exchange offer. But you saw President Trump there basically nodding in a very big way to that, not even looking very dismissive. Is there no doubt, is there any shred of doubt in your mind that perhaps the president could do this unconventional thing, which would be in a long string of unconventional things that this president has done?
Well, you have to understand that the president has to rely on people working for him, and those people aren't going to conduct illegal activities on behalf of the president in such a public way, because people will end up getting indicted for doing that if they do. It's just not going to happen.
The president's been criticized for everything he said at NATO, and particularly to Angela Merkel. But let me ask you this. How do you feel about the fact that Germany wants to be so reliant on Russian energy, while at the same time wants to be defended by the United States and our military spending when it comes to a potential Russian attack?
Well, this is one place where I actually agree with Trump on foreign policy, which is that as far as Germany is concerned, they should not be building a pipeline from Russia, a gas pipeline from Russia to Germany that makes them more dependent on Russian gas. You don't have to be a history student to just look into recent history to see that Russia uses gas as a tool for political pressure and leverage. And they've turned off the gas on numerous occasions before for exactly that purpose. And so the idea that Germany would become more reliant on Russian gas is not a good idea. Trump was right to point it out. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't. I mean, all military commitments of NATO should be held exactly as they are. But it's not unreasonable. And I know a lot of other politicians in European countries that agree with me and agree with Trump that Germany shouldn't be becoming more reliant on Russian gas.
And yet we don't hear it from them very often, right? I mean, the whole discussion for the last week is everybody is aghast at what the president said to the leader of Germany without seeming to acknowledge what is a very inconsistent position on her part.
Well, you know, everybody is relying on or reacting to one soundbite or two soundbites, but in that particular case, you know, putting aside partisan politics or anything, Germany should not be allowing Russia to get its claws and its leverage into German affairs, because the next thing that will happen is German politicians will say, "Oh, we can't be tough on Russia because they'll turn off the gas." They shouldn't put themselves in that position.
What did Putin want out of this meeting? He called it twice, used the word negotiation, this negotiation. President Trump never referred to it as a negotiating, a meeting, engagement, etc. What do you think that means, and what did Putin ultimately hope for?
Well, I think Putin got 90% of what he wanted just by the whole thing happening. I mean, just understand that Putin is a guy who's running a country with an economy the size of the state of New York, with a military budget 90% less than the United States' military budget, and he's been put on an equal footing to the most powerful man in the free world. And he came an hour late to the meeting. And so for Putin, just the optics that he had this important meeting is all that he really needed. Whatever agreements or non-agreements or whispers or nudges, that's all bonus. But the fact that he had a summit with the most important man in the free world, when he comes from such a second-tier country with so little influence other than negative influence, is a big win for Vladimir Putin.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.